I'm not sure what I should call Hitchhiker a mystery game, as strange as that may sound. It's got the genre and medium in the title. If anything, I should be complaining that it's a bit too on the nose, and yet it isn't like most mysteries, games, or for that matter, mystery games, that I've ever experienced. If you go into this game looking for a Sherlock Holmes road trip, you will be disappointed. Mystery is not the genre so much as it is a plot device, and at no point does the game require you to put all of its pieces together. Basically, the gameplay has nothing to do with actually solving the mystery. That's something you have to decide to do on your own. Luckily for you, I have put the pieces together, or rather, placed them in a shape that I think looks pretty neat. And whether you've played the game before and just want closure on that ending, or you've never heard of it before clicking on this video, I think there's something for you here. But first, a little background info. Hitchhiker, a mystery game, God, that title is clunky, was released on March 26, 2021 on Apple Arcade and April 15, 2021 for PC and consoles. It costs around $15 US, and if you're taking your time with it and really smelling the hell out of all of its roses, you'll squeeze several hours out of the first playthrough. That might sound like barely any time at all for a game, but in order to fully grasp the story, you'll probably want to play the game through a few times to see every dialogue option and to see what might have flown under your radar the first time. I think it's safe to assume the game was designed to be short to make subsequent playthroughs less daunting. Overall, I sunk around 15 hours into this game before even recording footage for this video, so it can definitely provide decent value for its price if you think 1 hour should cost about $1. With inflation being the way it is these days, I doubt your dollar will go that far for much longer, so I'm taking what I can get. The game takes place over the course of 5 different rides with 5 different drivers, slowly bringing you to a destination you can't quite remember because, of course, you have amnesia. You wake up in the first driver's car, and the titular mystery is uncovering your past and how it led to this moment. Gameplay is almost entirely selecting dialogue options with the occasional environmental puzzle that will loop endlessly until you solve it. So it's safe to say that the pro gamers in the crowd won't be fully stimulated. Doom Eternal, this ain't. That said, if you recall, this game began its life in the Apple Arcade, so it was designed with some limitations in mind. And if you're willing to meet it halfway and approach it from the mindset of a calm, reflective journey instead of some fantastical, action-packed adventure, then the stripped-down, minimalized nature of the gameplay is fine. Maybe even appropriate. Look, this game is not for everyone, but if you've got $15 to spare and any of this has sounded intriguing to you, I think it's worth your while to give it a shot. Give it a few playthroughs to experience all the dialogue and see what it has to offer, then come back here and we'll have a nice long chat about what you saw. I will need to thoroughly spoil every aspect of this game in order to present my solution for the mysteries it presents, so this is your spoiler warning. If you want a little more detail before you decide, there will be another one after the first ride, so stick around until then and see where you stand after that. Alright, now that you powered through that intro, I think it's time to dig into the meat of what we're doing here. I know, putting a thesis statement this far in, my English teacher would be rolling in her grave. If she were dead. But she's not, so she'll just have to get over it. When it comes to solving the questions presented by Hitchhiker, and no, I will not be calling it by its full name again, a lot is left up to some level of inference and interpretation. For the sake of staying as objective as possible, and providing any of you who have never played the game with context, we'll begin by stepping through the plot as it's presented in a first playthrough, and discussing it as literally as possible. No speculation, guesses, or assumptions being made here, just what do we see and what do we hear. Hopefully we'll be able to find out who we are, what we're doing, how we got here, and most importantly, where we're going. With that as a base, we can talk about what this all means. So fasten your seatbelts, make sure you packed a toothbrush, and let's start hitching some rides. Welcome to our first ride, and with a raisin farmer no less. Lucky break, I hear they're a nice bunch. This is Vern Woodson, and he would love for you to try some of his raisins. No, don't worry, it's normal for raisins to do that to your vision. Just maybe don't eat a handful all at once. A pal of mine did that, and he hasn't been able to stand up straight since. Let's take a quick look around his car. I'm sure he won't mind us poking around. His visor has a note on it saying, "Love is the extremely difficult realization that something other than oneself is real. Iris Murdoch." We've also got a duck call, a can to kick around in the footwell, and Raisin Guy. Look at this little fella. He's just the cutest, ain't he? No time to focus on him too much, though. Vern wants to talk to us about how he knows life is a simulation. What a fun conversation starter. This is how most of these rides will be going. Take some time to look around the car and the environment while we have some existential small talk with your driver. As we learn about each other, their questions will get more and more pointed towards us and our unknown past. For now, let's get to know Vern a little better. He seems to be pretty introspective, what with questions like, is any of this real? Will we actually remember this ride or just a snapshot of it? And, do you want another raisin? This farmer must be quite the philosopher. Has to be, with an out-of-body experience like we just had with him. Holy shit, put me back in the car, please! Talk a bit more and we'll learn that his wife has died, and he says we seem to be grieving something as well. Not sure what, though. Kind of a rude thing to say. Sounds like we just looked a bit bummed. No need to make assumptions like that, Vern. It gives raisin farmers a bad name. After spending a few more minutes waxing poetic, he asks us to tell him what color his eyes are. 'Cause of course, why not? Get it wrong and he lectures us on not truly paying attention to the conversation. You know, how conversations are about what color people's eyes are. Get it right, and guess what? We learned that we're potentially a photographer based on our backpack. However that works.
Just figured from your gear. A lot of photographers carry that backpack.
He asks us to roll down the window, and when we do, a matchbook has appeared with a cry for help and a number written on it. Vern gets suspicious and asks us about it, and if we cover it up, things get a bit tense for a minute. Awkward. Let's change the subject. Vern picks up a lot of hitchhikers, and apparently he has them down to a few stereotypes. He decides to name us Copernicus because we're traveling the world without knowing where we're going. Deep cut, especially for someone who goes on to mistake him for Comenius. Elementary mistake, honestly. If life is a simulation, I'd expect the AI to be a bit brighter than this. He tells us about a song he used to sing with his brother on road trips to drive their parents crazy. He does seem like that kind of kid. Apparently in hell they have a hell of a lot of bala bread. I wouldn't know nothing about that.
In hell they have a hell a lot of bala bread. In hell they have a hell a lot of bala bread.
It's not really to my taste, but his song must have been a hit, because after a minute his radio cuts on and sings along with him.
Actually, I'm beginning to understand my parents' perspective.
Creepy. Conversation moves back to Vern's wife, and he says he has a picture of his wife in the glove compartment, but never opens it himself due to superstition. You know the old don't open your glove box superstition. When we go to get a picture of her out of his previously locked glove compartment, we instead find a Polaroid of a woman that is definitely not his wife, standing with us. If you were under the impression these were going to be just your average drives around town, jettison those thoughts now. Vern's picture of his wife has transformed into a photo of our missing girlfriend, and he does not know how that happened. Plus, he won't stop talking in raisin metaphors. I don't think raisins have the metaphorical power you're hoping for, man. Besides the concerning magical Polaroid, Vern's glove box also contains a Farmer's Almanac from 1954 and a pair of binoculars that show a field with scarecrows surrounding a windmill. Vern's quite the collector of oddities. Scenic break! Okay, this is going to happen a lot during our rides, so I should probably explain. Every so often on a ride, you will be hit with a lull where the driver will turn on the radio and stop talking so you can soak everything in, which is fine by me. It's a little weird, but you know what, I guess talking all the time just isn't for everyone. Take this time to look around the car, fiddle with anything you like, and hang out with Raisin Guy. When you're done, just tap the driver and get back into it, which we should probably go ahead and do. No need to drag this thing out for too long. Plus, I've just wasted perfectly good B-roll rambling on like this.
Why did the raisin take the prune to the dance? He couldn't get a date.
And he comes back with a raisin joke. What a bastard. At least he's passing things over to Darlene for the Interstate Riddle Hour. If you were watching closely during the drive, you might have noticed ads along the highway for it. Must be a pretty popular show. Let's tune in and see what kind of riddle she's got for us.
Welcome to another Interstate Riddle Hour. Here's our first riddle. Keep your eyes peeled, all you blacktop carpetbaggers.
Hold on, carpetbaggers? Is she allowed to say that? Whatever. Let's just get these riddles figured out.
I fly, yet I have no wings. I cry, yet I have no eyes. Darkness follows me. Lower light I never see. Very good.
No clue how she's hearing our answers, but
I don't know why I listen to this every day. Damn questions are rigged. I never get them.
Says the guy who never knew what pressure to keep his tires at.
Hey!
did she just respond directly to Vern through the radio? Must be one of them newfangled Alexa radios what's listening to you. The Alexa radio thinks Vern's a liar, and the photo of that girl has a hole burned through it, so it's time for this conversation to get awkward again. Lovely. Vern's ready to start being a bit more forward about what's going on here. He claims we've chosen him to be our driver as much as he chose to pick us up. His only lie is that we have absolutely met before. Twice. We were the photographer for a story about struggling farmers for a magazine. The girl in the photo is our girlfriend, and she was backpacking around Europe when we met Vern. Plus, Vern is no longer #1 in raisin production. What a tragedy. Doesn't seem related at all, but my heart goes out to the guy. I'm pretty sure he's dodging the question, but with a wife who hid her x-rays in his glove box because she knew he'd never open it, I guess you can't blame him for not wanting to deal with it. Sympathies aside, he makes another raisin pun or metaphor, I'm gonna shove his ass in the glove box.
I wish it was that simple, kid. Hey, Chief. Why don't you have a look here? He appeared on this highway about the same time you did. I guess he's part of what you're running from.
Okay, so Marty McFly's in the back seat now? Cool. I can only see him in reflections? Sure, alright. Vampire Marty McFly then. Marty McBat? There's probably something funny there. After nonchalantly having his car invaded by Mr. Bat to the Future, Vern's ready to open up about the second time we met, but he thinks it would be better to show instead of tell, so we finally have a destination. Night falls fast on these country roads, huh? Or are we blacking out? Damn it, I told you there was something weird about those raisins. Why'd you let me eat so many? Ooh, story time! Vern's got a neat little parable about a man who comes upon a gate with a guard barring entry to it. Tale as old as time, am I right? The man waits with the guard for an unknowable amount of time, and eventually realizes there's no one else on this road but them. A crow tells him that's because he made the gate, and he made it because from this point on, the road won't be so straight or easy to travel. Maybe that means something, but I promise not to read into anything yet, so now is not the time.
Take it from me. It's better to face things with, what's it called again? Fortitude. Better not to feel too much. Want a raisin?
Damn, these raisins are hitting different, huh? And now we've got some crow friends? What do you say? Let's get these birds high! And they must love it, because we've got all kinds of crows now. Vern loses control of the car to these raisined up birds, and now we're finally at the windmill we saw earlier. Turns out this is Vern's farm, and after a quick puzzle using binoculars and a window crank, yes, I know how weird that sounds, you just kinda have to see it for yourself, we finished our journey with Vern. His car prints out a new copy of that Polaroid, sans the hole in the girl's head, and we can finally remember the moments right before it was taken. Seems like Vern was right. This is our girlfriend about to head off to Europe. We have a road trip planned as soon as she gets back, but... that's odd. We're working as a photography on a story about vanishing farmers, but it's apparently about grape farmers, not raisin farmers. What's a grape?
You a memory box for your Polaroid. Say cheese.
Vern thinks the box from our memory is the key to this mystery, so off we go to find that box. What a nice way to end our time with the man. It's really the perfect send-off.
Oh, one more thing.
Wait, Vern, you've done so well. You don't have to
What
end
did the grape say
You don't have to end
when
this
he
on a
got
raisin
run
joke.
over by the car?
Please. I don't want to do this. Don't say it. Don't say it.
Nothing. He just gave a little whine.
Son of a... Alright, I'm gonna need a minute to calm down before we take our next ride. While I cool off, let's slip in one last spoiler warning for good measure. You've just seen how every single ride will go, more or less. You look around the car, wax philosophical with your driver, listen to a few neat stories, more or less, soak in your environment and the music, repeat. Sure, each ride has its own special gameplay gimmick like the binoculars, and the personalities of each rider vary a decent bit, but at the end of the day, if you liked Vern, you'll like the game, and if you didn't, I really doubt anything coming up will be so revolutionary as to change your mind. So go ahead and buy it if you want, play through a few times, and hey, come on back to me if you have any questions. Or, well, please come back either way. I promise we'll have a good time, even if you figured it all out on your own, which I'm sure you did. You're so smart, and I love you. Now that we've gotten that, weirdness out of the way, look, I'm going off script here. I know I just said I love you. I don't really know you, unless you're my mom. Hey Mom, thanks for watching. Let's not make this weird. I'm just not ready to, fully commit to an audience right now. And I really don't know if this is the right time, for me to... It's just a spoiler warning, we're not even like 30 minutes into the video and I said I love you. That's so weird. Where was I? What am I talking about? Spoiler warnings have been effectively served. From here on out, I'm going to be talking in as much detail as I want, and none of y'all can stop me. Legally, though, feel free to stop at any point and get the game if you realize that it actually looks pretty good. Studies do show that knowing how a story goes can actually improve someone's chances of wanting to read it, so maybe that translates to a game? I don't know. I'm just putting this here so we can play it in court if I get sued for breaking this shit down too hard. Speaking of breakdowns, I think I've finished mine, so let's get back on the road. We found ourselves in our girlfriend's childhood neighborhood. How convenient? The man nice enough to pick us up in the middle of a random field wants to know our thoughts on what put us at the top of the food chain, and he's not taking our bullshit. Opposable thumbs is an answer he's sick of hearing, so don't even try it. He thinks memory is what makes humans special. No one tell him that koalas have that too. He likes memory so much he's come up with the old apartment rule, a new social convention meaning you should be allowed to return somewhere and get let in simply because you used to live there. This fine Oregonian trying to find excuses for breaking into houses is Patrick Hopper, or Hops. That's what he likes to be called anyway. He lives somewhere around here, but that's not why we're driving around in circles in suburbia. We're heading somewhere special, but first, let's help him find the right turn. He's not lost, it's just that some jerk rearranged all the letters on the signs. We're going to skip straight past the small talk and get down to business. We've met Hops before, and according to him, everyone on this road is looking for something. He's searching for his dog, Hops. Yep, named a dog after himself. Definitely from Oregon. He's spoken to Vern. Apparently, everyone on this road knows each other, and it turns out that he wants to help us find what we've lost. He's actually met our girlfriend before, which is a step up from Vern. We showed up to his house saying it used to be hers, but a phone call led to an argument, and we never actually came inside. That's as much as he knows. Luckily, he's taking us to the Warehouse of Lost Things, so we can pick her up there. You can find everything you've lost in your lifetime there as long as you can find it within 15 minutes of getting in. I guess this won't be so hard after all. He's found a lost dog there before, so he's expecting we'll both find what we're after once we arrive. A quick look around his car shows an old fax machine manual, stickers about elections and saving some sea animals, a fortune from a fortune cookie, a couple of postcards to a Lola Montez and a Jack Pinkham, and stacks on stacks of newspapers. The postcard for Lola is from Hops, but that postcard to Jack is from someone named Kira, which I'm pretty sure isn't Hops' name, so that's worth thinking about. Not now, though. Hops is dealing with a green light going off in his car. Insert obligatory Great Gatsby reference.
The green light. The epic sense of man's urgency. The future that keeps receding from us. Yes, I suppose you've read The Great Gatsby, too.
Oh, wait. Hops did it for us. Thanks, bud. Well, at least he subtly dropped that he's a humanities professor. That explains a lot. Hops wants us to find that Lola he has a postcard for. She's a toy bear he picked up at the World's Fair in Barcelona in 1929. Big shocker. She's hiding in the glove compartment. Vern's damn Bala Bread song apparently really must have been a banger, because someone went back in time and made that the song that this wind-up bear from 1929 plays.
Very peculiar.
She's not ready to talk to us, so we've got to find some memory objects to keep her company. In the meantime, Hops is anxious to find his dog, since it's been months since he lost her. He's been doing hard time underneath an escalator, slipped right through the crack, and spent most of the previous year stuck in a world beneath the mall trying to play games with missing pieces and eat food stuffed in a mannequin. What? It's not that weird. That's just what it's like in Oregon. The mannequin helps him stuff food under the escalator, so now who feels dumb, huh? Hops saved a man who was mistaken for a mannequin and got a pipe as thanks. Lola pipes up at that. Get it? Lola pipes up at that. Get it? Lola pipes up at that. You get it? Pipes up? That's not funny. Lola pipes up at that. Get it? Yeah, you get it. Whatever. One of those takes will probably work. I'll figure out. I'll edit it together. Just note to self, edit out the rest of those, please. For God's sake, I cannot let people see me like this. I have a reputation to uphold. And we have our first memory object. Next up is a cassette about the Gulag. Lola likes a story from it about the sandwich. For those of you unfamiliar with a time when Russia was better known by 4 scary letters, the Gulag was a prison camp where criminals were sent to do labor. They weren't well guarded because they were in the middle of nowhere, so anyone who ran away was likely to starve anyway. To get around this, prisoners planning an escape would invite a third, particularly meaty member to join the escape. That man would be called the sandwich. When things got dire, the sandwich became a meal plan. In one particular instance, 2 escapees ate the sandwich a bit too quickly and began to get hungry again. Both were too professional to admit it, but they knew whoever fell asleep first would get eaten. Hops finds the story to be similar to the situation we're in now. Neither of us can fully trust the other, and whoever falls asleep first is going to regret it. Real nice image, man. I'm honestly missing the raisin jokes a bit. You can just skip that story if you don't want to hear it, though, and Hops will test our dedication to learning the truth with a blue and red pill. Ever seen The Matrix? Me either. I don't know why I felt like asking that. Take the blue pill, and we have once again been drugged. This has turned out to be quite the journey in drug use. Hop claims it's just a Tic Tac, but I've eaten a whole box of Tic Tacs once, and that shit does not make me black out. Just made my tongue orange. Hops is curious about why we're so intent to find this girl we don't know anything about, and we finally remember something about a firefly in a jar.
All you have to do is find your way back to me. Let's keep him as our pet.
You two didn't even mean to capture it. It just flew into the empty bottle.
It's a start. Hops absolutely ruins the vibe by saying that we're alike in our belief that the future is gone and all we have left is the past. Thank God for Raisin Guy. This ride was almost ruined. That dude has the best timing. Hell yeah, Raisin Guy. Hops clearly needs a vibe reset because he's getting a little bugged out. Fella thinks a kaleidoscope is a compass. At least Lola thinks it's neat, so we finally have enough objects to convince her to speak up. She tells Hops something about an accident she thinks we've caused, but Hops assures her we've been with him the whole time, so she must be a bit confused. All these objects we've collected turn out to make a really good camera. Guess that's how they made them back in 1929. So it's time to forget our worries with a quick photo sesh. With some guidance from Mind Fireflies, we can take photos of the past around the neighborhood. That dude from Vern's back seat seems to be hitching rides still. What are the odds we're heading in the same direction? Anyways, turns out the super convenient warehouse closed down, so I guess we've got more trips to make after all. Hop sees his dog's collar running around, and after a short chase, we can capture it on film. I guess that makes it real again? Whatever, man. I'm still tripping on those raisins and Tic Tacs. All of this has led to Hops's house, and he asks us to meet him here again in a year. Agree or don't, it's up to you, but after taking a picture of his house, we can get our new memory. Our girlfriend had a similar idea to Hops. She wants to see her old house, current resident be damned. Before we enter, she gets a call, and we sit outside afterwards, talking. She's thinking about moving back to a place like this from Seattle, where we currently live, but we aren't loving the idea. I sense some trouble in paradise. Deposit our new camera into Hops's mailbox, and we get that blue box from our memory on Vern's farm. A fair trade, if I do say so myself. Hops runs off to catch Hops the dog, and it's time to run while he's not looking. I don't care who the next driver is. We gotta go.
Hey, you need a ride someplace? Listen, I'm not your girlfriend. And I'm not your mother. But you'd better finish that pickle, or else I'm stealing it.
This aspiring pickle thief is Leia Birdsall. She's a waitress at Dante's Diner on her day off. If you remember the billboards from our time with Vern, you might already recognize that name, but it's nice to see it in all of its glory. Leia likes to tell it how it is, and, fair warning, the way it is isn't always going to be as delightful as our previous chats. That's not a problem for me, though. I'm too distracted trying to catch these doubles, yo. Throughout our entire conversation in the diner, items will duplicate, and if you can catch them, you get points. I'm shooting for the high score. Gotta get back into that Chuck E. Cheese mindset, you know what I mean? Trying to earn those stretchy hands so I can slap my brother from across the room. If you're the kind of person that actually listens to the person talking to you, though, you might hear Leia demonstrate the difficulty of her craft by hitting you with a rapid-fire order. Don't worry, thanks to a damned English muffin, you can't get the answer right. She'll hit you with a technicality if you say 2 or 3. That's the third worst thing an English muffin has ever done to me. Leia put us through that unwinnable test to demonstrate her particular skill set. She can read people, and she knows everyone on this highway. Take Hops, for instance. She can already guess that he has asked us to meet him again in a year, and depending on whether or not you told him yes, your response might provoke her pity or respect. She thinks of Hops as the patron saint of useless stuff. I don't remember him from Sunday school, but I suppose there's always more secrets with them Catholics. Leia pulls a real boomer move and complains about the ghosts that keep popping in and out at the diner. She calls them blue screen zombies. They're fellow patrons too absorbed in their phones to pay attention to the world around them, hence their ephemeral nature. Your girlfriend was behaving similarly the day that Leia served us in this very diner, and it led to a pretty nasty spat. The way she tells it, we got frustrated with our girlfriend texting too much instead of being present and connecting, and we stormed out. Sounds like we're a bit of a boomer ourselves. Our girlfriend seemed to be making a plan to meet someone when she followed after us, and she left behind a business card for some company called Balkan Tours, with a meeting place and a date on the back. Leia's happy to take us to the location once we finish our meal. A map falls out of a menu with a road trip drawn out on it that Leia says is the one we took with our girlfriend. It even has the meeting place on the back of the business card. Leia thinks all these coincidences are proof that the whole thing is a lucid dream. Apparently she's under the impression that there's no such thing as a raisin farmer. Whatever, she's just jealous of Raisin Guy. She's pretty nonchalant about the whole our life is a dream thing because she reads poetry, so this is just another Thursday for her. She quotes a poem from Robert Haas's Praise about how words can lose their meaning, but the person in the poem finds his way back to sanity by remembering a lover he had. The memories kind of come back together and give him something specific to anchor himself to. I don't know why she's bringing it up. Sounds completely unrelated. She's just worried we're going to project something onto her, says it's pretty common for a waitress. She thinks people come to diners less for the food and more for the social interaction, and technology has only really exacerbated the issue of people no longer being present. In this world, there are robot doubles that can look and act exactly like you within a certain level of ability. They can do some basic tasks for you, but people have a bad habit of sending them out to handle way more complicated parts of life that they just don't want to deal with. I'm sure there's a metaphor there, but I'm not touching it. Just put a pin in it. Metaphor or not, these things were real enough to warrant a slide master presentation about a time Leia dealt with some real nasty doubles. For all the Zoomers out there, these things were like PowerPoints for people who wanted to feel like they were at the optometrist. For all the Boomers out there, PowerPoints are like boardroom meetings on a computer. Now that we have that sorted out, we can get into Leia's presentation. When she was a flight attendant, she was on a flight with a bunch of doubles. The altitude and pressure changes set the robots off, and she had to band together with the real passengers to dump them out of the airlock. Cool story, but I'm more interested in the fact that she just casually drops that Elvis had a robot double. Says it explains why his movies were so bad. I feel like I would have remembered that part of the movie though, so I don't know if I buy it. Tom Hanks definitely would have mentioned an Elvis robot. Leia's got a new idea to help us find our girlfriend though, so it's time for a telephone seance. She mocks a phone call with her girlfriend and is trying to help us figure out what we're looking for at the gas station. Things get real awkward, and you can see now why I said this isn't going to be the carefree ride we've gotten accustomed to.
You do anything to make it different, right? To fix things. I can take you to that gas station, and I can be her for you. Together, we'll open the box. You can make it happen. You can make it real. What do you say? Miss the old times? Let me be her.
Did her voice always sound like that? I think things are getting a bit out of hand with this game. We're left to decide whether or not we want our girlfriend, who we can finally confirm is named Kira, to become Leia. Maybe she was right. It's easy to project onto a waitress, but this is a bit extreme. This is probably one of the clearest examples where the dialogue paths diverge in the game. A lot of future conversation options will be completely different based on the choices you make here. I'll do my best to note where the options diverge, but no matter which choice you make, she gives you one question to ask. You can learn that the person that kidnapped Kira is known as the Man with Many Eyes. You might think that's an odd name, but you'd be foolish. Clearly, it's because he wears 10 eyes around his wrist. Obviously. You buffoon. Plus, he wears an orange vest, and he has a buddy named the Man with Mirror Eyes, so duh? Oh shit, it's Back to the Future Part Nosferatu, isn't it? You wake up from the seance still in the booth with Leia, and she tells us we dozed off for a second there. We're in luck because even though Thursday was 2 days ago, today is Leia's day off, and her day off is always a Thursday, so actually, we're early. Makes as much sense as anything else going on, so I'm not going to argue with it. Just take the win. Let's go catch that many-eyed man and save our girl. Right after we have this brain blast, we can finally remember the argument Leia described in the diner, but it's not quite what she said. We didn't storm out. Kira did. Weird detail to change, but whatever. No time to worry about that. It's time to lay a trap. Leia's skill as a chameleon is about to come in handy. She's got a wig in her car that will make her a dead ringer for Kira, so we're going to ambush this kidnapper at their meetup. Let's ride.
How do I look? Don't worry, it'll work. I'm good at this. I'm a very apt pupil. A very apt pupil. Here, take my phone. Call for help the moment something looks fishy.
Leia passes her phone to call for help when things get hairy, but for now, we can take a minute to get a quick look around her car. She's got a horoscope on her visor, and it looks like she's a Gemini, which, same girl, loving that twin life. She's also got that book of poetry she quoted earlier, and the business card. We can confront her about the inconsistency of her story, and she hits us with another hard truth. She thinks that each little lie, issue, and bump in the road is here because we don't fully want to know what's waiting at the end of this road. Kinda like what that bird says in Vern's story, huh? Ominous. Now, depending on how you handled the seance, the next bit can go very differently. Despite what Leia said, that wasn't a quick catnap, and she remembers which choice you made. If you tried to make her into Kira, she willingly drives you into a trap. She's going to turn you into the man with many eyes in exchange for something. She doesn't really say. If you chose to let her be herself, though, a light shining into the car takes control and forces her towards the man. You're ambushed either way, but at least she doesn't hate you in one version of the events. The last thing I need is another waitress trying to kill me. A car swerves into the gas station, and our ride has finally finished as wildly as it started. Hope you aren't claustrophobic, because the next part is gonna be cramped. Ugh, if I had $1 for every time I woke up in a trunk, I'd be able to afford to make a less lame joke here. Either we got kidnapped or we opted for the economy class Uber ride. Not to get too parasocial with you guys, but I've been in this exact situation before. There's no need to panic. It's pretty easy to get out as long as you can find the cord. There's usually a cord here. Okay, maybe you can panic just a little. I assumed at first glance that the number on the matchbook was just asking for help, but I guess it couldn't hurt to see if they can give us some help instead.
Yellow. Copernicus? Is that you?
Hey, what do you know? It was Vern's number the whole time. Guess that makes sense. It was sitting in his car. Sure hope you didn't choose to hide it from him, or this is a bit of an awkward moment, and he will not miss the chance to rub your nose in that. Vern is still going on about that box. Being locked in a trunk must not be a high enough priority for him. And on top of finding the key to unlock the box, now he wants us to learn a spell to defeat the final driver. Sure, now we need a spell. Why not? I can't honestly say it'll be the craziest thing we've done so far. His Farmer's Almanac comes in handy, and we can get the brake light loose. After a quick minigame to turn the light green, because of course we need a green light, we upgrade from Economy to Economy Plus. I'll never take this legroom for granted again. The man next to us seems to be as shocked by our sudden appearance as we are. I only say seems because he's speaking in Arabic, so I can't quite make out what he's saying. This is the fun part of the game, where you don't actually have dialogue options to choose from. You either scream at him to speak English, or turn the game off. Sorry. It's the true American experience. Play around with the radio, and it'll translate for you both. You can hear English, and he hears you speaking Arabic. Neat radio. Bet it can't hold 6 CDs at the same time, though. According to the license on his loading screen, this is Syed Bahar, but on these roads, he's known as Ibn al-Shatir, which is what I'll be calling him. For the non-history nerds out there, he explains that al-Shatir is Copernicus's eastern counterpart. And what do you know? He seems to think that waking up in that trunk is actually part of his dream. For once, we're the ones doing the invading. That's so wild and quirky. I'm sure there's nothing metaphorical there at all. He seems like a kind soul, so maybe we can take this chance to just breathe and talk to someone. No hidden motives or subtle hints at what the hell is going on. Just a nice chat with a nice man. The only thing in his car is a note with "Wake Up" written in all caps, though, so probably not. Looks like a storm's brewing outside, and we're driving straight into it. Let's take our minds off of that by asking al-Shatir about himself. He's running from a gang from his home country looking for his brother-in-law. He's an exile from his own home, but he was able to sneak out to Istanbul. Every time he tries to get across into Greece, police keep stopping the boat and sending them back to Turkey. That's where his sleeping body is now, while his subconscious drives along American highways for a reason even he doesn't fully understand. Once again, a driver seems to be convinced that this is all just a dream, but considering he doesn't even know us or our girlfriend, I find it a lot harder to doubt him. He has far less reason to be lying to us. When we show him a picture, he thinks he recognizes Kira, but we quickly realize he's talking about Leia in disguise. If you betrayed Leia, you can tell him about it, and his only comment is he has never known the staff at Dante's to dish out anything that wasn't deserved. Ouch. Fair. Al-Shatir gives us a good piece of advice. In this place, it's important to see things for what they really are, not what we want them to be. Appreciate the advice, but I'd love it if it were that easy. It would make this video a lot shorter. He saw Leia arguing with Mini Eyes and Mirror Eyes, and it sounds like we lucked out when al-Shatir came along. We leapt into his dream at the last second and dodged an uncomfortable alternative. He could make out that they were after someone with 8 digits. Us. Because we have 8 digits of old Ten Eyes' phone number, not because we lost any fingers. We need those fingers for taking pictures, goofball. I'm going to be honest, I have no clue why they phrased it this way. It's not even like it's supposed to be some big reveal later. After a couple of seconds, we figure out what it meant, so it just kind of feels like an unnecessary attempt at being clever with phrasing. I don't know. Whatever. He also heard about the blue box, and he tells us that they have the key, but they still want the box too. We get the pointless option of deciding whether or not to lie to him here. If we confirm that we have the box, tumbleweeds crowd the car and open up into eyeballs. And if we lie, they do the exact thing, so yeah. Looks like our orange-vested pal wasn't joking about all the eyes he has in his arsenal. Let's use the magic 1 CD having radio to tune into the weather report and see if we can't summon some wind. Shouldn't need anything too serious, just a light breeze to sweep him away. I said a light breeze. Is that a tornado? You know what? Yeah, this dude kidnaps people. Let's suck his ass up. Sure am glad Al-Shatir's car is bolted down, or that tornado might have been a problem for us too. Al-Shatir understandably wants to know everything we know about Mr. Multi-Eyes after that altercation, so we show him the Balkan Tours card. Unfortunately, he recognizes the company, and he's not giving them 5 stars. He has a buddy in Istanbul who told him that refugees and tourists who accept the help of Balkan Tours would disappear, never to be seen again. There was something about rooms full of mirrors and full of eyes that would drive people crazy. Getting to Kira sounds like a more urgent issue with every passing second. Nothing we can do about that right now, though, so he's kind enough to distract us with the story. When Al-Shatir's niece was worried about where he was going, he told her this story as a way of sugarcoating the truth. Might be worth listening to now. He's telling it either way, so you might as well let it take your mind off of the big scary threat that has your girlfriend. There's a place called the 2-story bridge where he would go fishing and stare off into the horizon. He imagined that the water led to Fiji, the place he was told was the farthest away from where he grew up in Baghdad. He imagined that the edge of the water is where the sky touched the earth, so everyone in Fiji had to stoop over not to bump into the sky. Eventually, the people couldn't stand slouching anymore, and went in search of a new place to live without such a low ceiling. Al-Shatir clearly doesn't believe in short kings, but this place sounds like a great place for them to go to vacation. Anyway, the Fijians founded a new city, but the sky was still too close, and whenever there was thunder, it would cause earthquakes. One move was all the Fijians had in them, though, so this time they resolved to stay and build their city out of rubber. Al-Shatir's niece didn't really care for the story, so he changed some things around and made it about a Fijian princess named Nadia, who found out that earthquakes were coming from a dragon living underground. It had a splinter and would roar, causing the ground above to shake. Nadia slayed the dragon, which feels like an overcorrection for a splinter, and saved the people with a magic spell.
Conoce se auton.
Hey, we were looking for a spell. Maybe we should try that one out? It's Greek, so you know that shit will go hard. And, as a matter of fact, it not only shut off all the mirrors in the car, but it filled in the phone number for Balkan Tours. Those Greeks knew their stuff. Time to make a call. One tour to what the hell is going on, please. Al-Shatir warns us not to trust them if they tell us someone we know is in danger. That's part of their scam, and it's a sure sign that they're laying a trap. The guy on the other side of the phone seems to know a bit too much about us, but he's ready to meet at the gas station in an hour. I'd ask Al-Shatir to drive us there, but he seems to be going ghost, so I don't want to bother him. It's time for him to wake up in Istanbul and try once again to make it to Greece. He leaves us a letter, and now it's time to finish this thing, whatever that's gonna mean.
Hey, sorry I haven't written in a while. It took me all morning just to figure out where to buy stamps here.
Well, here we are. It's the end of the road. Not sure how this is going to help, but let's jump off a cliff. Why not? Been waiting to do this since Vern's first raisin joke. The letter Al-Shatir left us is from Kira. She wrote about her time abroad, and she sent a 50 billion dinar bill as a souvenir, like she promised back in the memory on Vern's farm. Before the socialists out there start sharpening their knives, being a billionaire means a lot less where she was. According to the man who gave it to her, inflation was so bad that the bill could hardly pay for a sandwich. They should talk with the guys from the Gulag about that. They clearly knew about substitutes for sandwiches. She's been enjoying her sightseeing so much that she decided to go hang gliding. Pretty bold considering she had just heard a story about someone whose instructor didn't get strapped in properly. Poor person was stuck flying for the first time in her life solo. But I guess no one got hurt, so whatever. Still wild her tour guide would bring that up on the way to go hang gliding, but That's why they pay him the big bucks, not me. We get a quick mini-game going on a glide of our own, and not to be that guy, but she totally quotes Dune without any credit. Fear is the mind killer, huh, Kira? Where'd you come up with a neat saying like that? She also quotes Eleanor Roosevelt without citing her, but at least we see the fridge magnet she's talking about, and that shows who the quote's from. Sounds like we've got ourselves a regular plagiarist on our hands. Literary crimes aside, Kira's letter makes it clear that we have not been a very effective pen pal, and she's really trying her hardest to stay in touch. When our time hanging in the clouds is over, we wake up in our final car.
Geez, there you are. Nice of you to grace us with your presence. I've been looking all over for you. You were supposed to be waiting by the post office, remember?
Odd. I expected it to be a bit more spooky here. At least the driver is as grating as I expected. Our final test comes thanks to Jack Pinkham. The name sounds familiar. He's blaming us for something, but he's being a bit vague about it all. No time to ask for clarification. He takes a call and... I really thought I would have gotten used to the weird shit that happens on this highway by now, but his VR headset phone call really does take me off guard every single time. While he chats, let's look around a bit. Well, now I know where I've heard his name before. This is the Jack that the postcard in Hop's car was addressed to. It sounds like this guy is Kira's brother? That doesn't make sense. Why would her brother help kidnap her? Just when things feel like they should start making sense, they get even more confusing. The guy on the phone with Jack seems to be talking about us, but he's not ready to see us yet. He just wants to make sure Jack got us. Jack finishes the call and has the nerve to claim that his headset is a good way to not wreck while driving. Like, I'm sorry, bud, but there's absolutely no way you can see the road in that thing. Chill out. Although him mentioning us causing an accident, that's what Lola was saying before. And wasn't that newspaper in Hops's car about a woman from Seattle around Kira's age in a car accident? And Jack says we grabbed Kira's phone out of her hands while she was driving. I'm not liking where this is going. Darlene is a welcome interruption to all of this foreboding foreshadowing. After waiting for us to make a fool out of ourselves, she says only we can hear her, and she wants to make sure we've got the box. We confirm as much, and she urges us to tread carefully and figure out what they know already. Jack claims he's taking us to the hospital, and that's not helping the prevailing theory. He wants to make it very clear that while Kira wasn't completely honest about her feelings, we don't have a right to be mad that we were drifting apart. And this Craig from Balkan Tours, he had a hand in showing her what she was missing. Are we sure this was a kidnapping? You know what? No. Alshatir warned us that these people would try to convince us someone we love was hurt. Is this not exactly what's going on right now? Screw this guy. We're going to find Kira, no matter what stupid made-up story he wants to throw at us. He wouldn't be the first liar we've met out here. See, he even calls us a great photographer when, from what I've seen so far, we're mediocre at best. I mean, a picture of a couple in a field, a photo of a random house? Not exactly mind-blowing, dude. Darlene cuts back in to tell us that the time has come to cast our spell. I hope your twink ass is ready, Jack, 'cause it's about to get Greek in here. Gnothi seaton. Huh. Probably just pronounced it wrong. Jack seems to roll with it, and it sounds like trips to Europe run in the family because all of a sudden Mr. VR over here knows Greek. Says the spell is Greek for know thyself. Such an obvious metaphor bait, it almost hurts just to move right past it, but a promise is a promise. Absolutely no thoughts going on up here. That is a guarantee. And would you look at that? He takes another call and tells the person on the other line that we tried it just like they expected. I'm right here, dude. Show at least a little discretion, please. Block my spells all you want, bitch. I know how to step on your brakes.
Okay, about to hit the exit. We got him. Hook, line, and sinker. Ah, what are you doing? Let go!
Fell for the oldest trick in the book. Reminds me of my first time on the highway with my father. That poor family of 16 behind us didn't know what hit them. After an awkward animation of us taking great pains to step on the brakes as slowly as possible, we cut to black. We wrecked on the shoulder of the road, and after rifling through Jack's wallet, we find the key to the box. A quick minigame to remove some pins, and we can finally find out about this memory we've been fighting so hard to discover. There's a 50 billion dinar bill, but that's to be expected. Kira did send it specifically to put in the box she gave us, didn't she? What I didn't expect was for the 10 zeros to wrap around our wrist. Uh-oh. And behind the bill, at the center of all this mystery, a cassette tape with one final memory. The night we caught the Firefly. We talk about that night as one of those nights, something we'll always have no matter what happens. She wants us to write a note to our future self and put it in the bottle as a way to remember this moment. We make a promise that no matter what mistakes we make, we'll remember this moment and come back to each other with the knowledge that it's never too late. And there you go. Credits. Curtain drop. Scene. Cut. However you want to say it, one thing is for certain. That's all you get. Any questions you still have do not have answers within the text. So say goodbye to whatever small amount of straightforward answers we found so far. Things won't be this simple again. I mean, none of this has been that simple. I've played through this game a lot to dig up as many different dialogue options as I could, but I'm still sure I missed plenty. There's always a few more nuggets of knowledge to glean, but if I'm being honest with you, most of the alternate dialogue options have pretty inconsequential changes. Most of our remaining answers are not written out to be read or heard. Hitchhiker is a mystery game, and we're going to have to solve it for ourselves. Okay, so first off, weird ending, right? I mean, what was the point of any of that? We went all that way, drove with all those odd characters, and what do we have to show for it? An awkwardly animated crash scene, and some weird metaphor about fireflies and sticking through a relationship no matter how awful it gets? Kinda toxic, and not super impactful for an ending. At least, that's how I felt when I first finished the game, and when I checked what people were saying online, I found plenty of folks who agreed. If you stop right here, you would have answers to the mysteries that this game poses. Who are you? You're a photographer who has recently had some relationship troubles due to long distance. Tale as old as time, big whoop. What are you doing? Going across the country trying to save your kidnapped girlfriend. Again, we've all been there, no biggie. How did you get here? The drivers differ on whether this was all a dream somewhat, but it's safe to say this is somehow the aftermath of a serious car crash. A real Wizard of Oz moment, if you will. Where are you going? To see your potentially ex-girlfriend. There are definitely some holes here and there, but if you wanted your questions answered, that will definitely work. Feel free to turn off the video now. I've succeeded in my mission to provide you with answers, and you're on a website cluttered with content. I will not keep you any longer than I have to. But I bet if you're like me and many others online, you're looking for a bit more than that. That's why I hesitate to call this a mystery game. Solving the so-called mystery, that doesn't feel like the end at all. There's something else to see here. The text has taken us this far, but if we want some more satisfying answers, I think it's time for some literary analysis. Now yes, I know this is a game, but it reads like a visual novel, and since novels are books, I think it's fair to interpret it like one. First, we need to address the blue curtain in the room. Few people I know hold literary analysis in high esteem. Some people think of it as, at best, grasping at straws, and at worst, just trying to make something look deeper than it really is. I think there's definitely some validity to those opinions, and I have rolled my eyes at my fair share of opinions. I also believe that if we bristle against every single attempt to glean something deeper from a work, we're doing that art a disservice, and whether they are right or not, as long as the interpretation is harmless and has any amount of evidence in the text, can we really fault anyone for getting something out of a piece of art? That is kind of what it's there for, isn't it? So please, understand that I am fully aware that this next part may go off the rails. It might get a little strange, and if I do it right, it will get personal. That's what you risk when you start looking for answers not explicitly in the text. You're going to have to show a little bit of yourself in the process. And I think that's what the creators of Hitchhiker are trying to make you do. From the bare UI to the built-in intermissions, this game is screaming at you to take your time and reflect on everything that's being said and done. And I think it's only fair that we go back in for a second look, this time with our eyes open for evidence of something just outside of our view. If you started to unbuckle, strap back in and don't blink, or you might just miss the man with many eyes. Here we are again, hanging with the philosophical raisin farmer. I won't lie, I've missed Vern. Things were a lot simpler when it was just us and him. That doesn't just stop with the literal, though. This drive absolutely beats you over the head with the central theme of Fortitude. Before we get too deep, I did want to mention a neat little moment of foreshadowing. We've already gone over the billboards along the road advertising Darlene's Radio Hour and Dante's Diner, but my fellow Greek myth nerds will recognize the other ad along these roads. Argus Panoptis, or All-Seeing Argus, is a monster that serves Hera as a sort of guard dog. Why does Hera pick him of all things? Well, because he is covered in eyes, so while some sleep, the others stay open to keep watch. Sound familiar? This just goes to show you that we've been seeing the man with many eyes' influence since the beginning of these rides. Now that I've finished my tangent, let's get into the interpretation. To start things off with a bang, I think each of these drivers are holding up a mirror to our favorite photographer and his various stages of self-awareness. As the journey progresses, we make our way from a clueless man hiding from the truth a la Verne to someone ready to be brutally honest with himself, like Jack. So where does that leave our friendly grape-dried farmer? Verne is a man who won't even open his glove box because it's where his dead wife hid her test results. This man never got past the first stage of grief. His drugged raisins are something we have not acquired a taste for yet, but he seems to be completely unaffected by them. They represent his lies. He isn't a raisin farmer. Leia was kind enough to remind us that that's not a real thing. He's a grape farmer who has gotten so caught up in everything that he can't even tell us what his real job is. It's no accident that the first words out of his mouth are an attempt to convince us that life is a simulation. If none of this is real, he doesn't have to feel bad about refusing to interact with any of it. He's numb to the world, and thanks to us, he calls that fortitude. We did choose him after all. After the accident, we fell into this dream or coma or whatever it is, and we decided that there was no one better than Verne to hide us from the hurt and, more importantly, the feeling that this might have all been our fault. It's a job he's more than happy to help with, and, like he said, there's no way to know how long we've actually been stuck on these looping dirt roads. Verne isn't a bad guy, though. He is the one to name us Copernicus and give us our first goal at the end of his leg of the trip. For those of you who don't quite remember who Copernicus is, he was a mathematician from the Renaissance who came up with heliocentrism, or the concept that the sun was the center of the universe, not the earth. Considering our journey is made up of constant memories of how selfish and self-absorbed we've been, I think it's worth noting that Verne was the first one to remind us that we are not the center of the universe, in his own way. Unfortunately, he also spends a lot of the ride dodging our questions as much as he can and going on constant tangents whenever he can get away with it. He's the embodiment of humming to yourself so you don't have to let the intrusive thoughts in. A favorite pastime of mine. That's what the Bala bread is all about. He and his brother were so desperate for anything to fill the time that they sang about bread. Unfortunately for Verne, you can't hide from anything forever, and interruptions become unavoidable. First, the Polaroid in his glove box changes, then Darlene calls him out for lying, Batty McFly shows up in the back seat, and finally, the crows take over entirely. Verne is desperately holding on to the little sliver of control he has, and it is beyond frustrating to him that we want to go beyond these well-worn paths to the terrifying unknown. That's why he tells us the story of the man who comes upon the first guard. On a second playthrough, the crow's explanation of what's beyond the gate makes a lot more sense. No matter what options you choose when talking to Verne, there's really only one path the conversation will take. But that is not the case with everyone else. The road will not be so straight after this. Moving forward, things become a lot less predictable and streamlined. Complications and bumps on the road start to appear almost immediately. We aren't fully ready to talk about it just yet, but this story also sets the groundwork for what's really going on here. Remember, there's no one else along this road because we built it for ourselves. When we feed the crows, we're rejecting Verne's lies in favor of the truth, which is what the birds represent. They tell it straight in Verne's story, and it's thanks to them we make it to the farm at all. There's not much to read into our memory, but I do think that each of these are somewhat reliable sources of information because Kira always calls them grape farmers, not raisin. Going forward, it's worth noting that these memories might be biased, but the actual events we're remembering are about as accurate as any information we're going to get. Our time with Verne is done once more, and now we have to do what he cannot. Move forward. Before we start digging into our good buddy Hops, I just wanted to give you a quick Argus update. If you look at the Consumer Reports magazine in his car, you'll see an ad for Argus Panoptis saying, "I see you." Just a fun little tidbit there, nothing spooky to worry about. This has been your Argus update. Now back to your regularly scheduled inane ramblings. Hops is still in the category of beating you over the head with his themes. If you didn't figure out that the dude is obsessed with memories, you haven't been listening at all. He thinks memory is what separates humanity from all other species, and as an anthropology professor, I guess he feels qualified to make such a wild assumption. If Verns' drive was about overcoming the urge to hide from the past, Hops is about getting over it completely. He's a self-admitted hoarder, but he doesn't consider his car manual worth keeping around. What he really values are sentimental items, or as he would call them, memory objects. The problem with his reliance on memory is demonstrated through our biggest obstacle in his leg of the trip. Everywhere he looks, things just aren't quite right. The street names have the same letters, but they're jumbled up into a new order. That left turn he could have sworn was right is no longer taking him where he needs to go. He's having the same trouble Kira was when she drove us through here. Memory is not as reliable as he wants to believe, and he's really running the risk of looking like your typical man refusing to ask for directions until he pulls out Lola. The toy bear embodies everything Hops likes about memories. She combines different memory objects and uses alchemy to turn them into something new and useful. In that way, we can give him some level of validation. There certainly is something to be said for valuing our memories. We can always learn from them, but he clearly takes it too far, looking exclusively to the past for answers. After all, the camera she makes can only see into the past, and while it ends up helping us out, it clearly isn't seeing things for what they really are. I think that's the real thing Leia's congratulating us for leaving behind. Hops would have added that camera to his pile of junk, but we were able to let it go. It's worth noting that Hops is a fan of Verns' raisins. If you buy into the idea that the raisins represent hiding from some painful truth, then we can probably infer that Hops is hiding in his memories from the present. Keep in mind that postcard from Hops to Lola. Depending on when you find it, you might not know Lola is the name of a toy bear, and you'd be forgiven for not immediately assuming that. But think about Hops' obsession with the past and the way he likes to name things after people, like his dog being named Hops. And I think it's fair to say that the Lola this card was for might not be the bear, but the bear's namesake. After all, who gives a toy bear a full first and last name? Hops lost a woman once, same as us, and instead of finding a way forward, he got stuck in the past. We should do anything we can to avoid following in those footsteps. I do not want a dog named Copernicus in our future. Our journey to the warehouse of lost things is also indicative of Hops' issue. Would you really be satisfied if the journey ended here? There's too much else left over that needs doing. The point of this journey is to endure the whole way as much as it is to get to the end. Hops is a man who has skipped past the trials of this place in order to get back the things he's lost, and that's why he keeps losing them. For crying out loud, he wasted his 15 minutes one time because he found some mittens he had as a kid. It makes sense that he would be the one to reference The Great Gatsby then. I can't think of a better literary character obsessed with the past. And good thing that they got it out of the way early on. The second a flashing green light shows up in anything, you're going to get 1,000 absolute nerds who want to tell you all about their personal interpretation of the light. It's about as bad as watching the scene where Aragorn kicks the helmet in The Two Towers. The Lord of the Rings fans out there will know what I mean. And everyone else can go home because this video was clearly not meant for you. That's right, I'm going to be hostile to my viewers now. What are you going to do about it, little twerp? Also, while I'm being that guy, Hops was born in 1958, but he says he found Lola in a World Fair in Barcelona in 1929. Dude's got memories older than he is. To be fair, I'm pretty sure this was intentional, but it's hard not to come off as nitpicky after roasting you as hard as I just did, so I just wanted to clarify that. The whole escalator escapade is a fun little exercise in the monotony of everyday life. He's trapped in a dull room with a TV showing nothing anyone wants to watch, and board games missing important pieces. The only thing to look forward to is getting to eat or meet another captive who didn't step off in time. Sounds like my typical weekend. The most wild part of that story, the part where they almost ate a dude, sounds a lot like the story about the gulag sandwich, doesn't it? Weird enough that there's a story about almost eating a guy, but you can't follow it up with a story about actually eating a guy and expect me not to notice. Cannibalism can be a metaphor for using someone to get what you want, and Hops basically says as much during the ride. The first one to fall asleep, or, metaphorically, trust the other blindly, is going to get eaten. And while he might not go through with that vague threat, we can absolutely see what it means if we betray Leia. He sees honor in the fact that neither side gave in to admitting the situation they were in, but again, you cannot take advice from the dude who named his dog after himself. We can't trust the drivers fully, but it's equally unhelpful to distrust them completely. We're going to need to find a better middle ground. The way Hops follows up this conversation is a little off-putting. When he asks us why we're bothering to find someone we don't remember, it feels like he's trying to convince us to give up, same as Vern. Another point in the whole he's been through something similar with the real Lola category. It's only when we begin to remember that he doubles back and claims he knew Lola was going to help the whole time. But you don't ask a question like that if you're confident someone will remember something. In all fairness, he does try to be helpful and interpret the end goal of our journey. He sees it as a trip to recapture the innocence of the moment we caught the Firefly, and knowing what we do now about what's locked inside of the box, he's not exactly wrong. He's still absorbed in his own problems, though, and after finding out the warehouse is closed, his first assumption is that his dog is lost forever. When something from the past is lost, he can't imagine a world where it can have any future. Fortunately for the dog, he's wrong, and we can leave him to hopefully learn that there are other ways of finding lost things. When we turn in the camera, we're giving up a life stuck in the past for some more answers. And those answers come in the form of a fast-talking waitress on our off day. Pass the pickles.
Hey, you need a ride someplace?
So, I don't have an Argus update for you this time, but in the spirit of bringing up something relatively inconsequential just to give myself nerd cred, the diner is a reference to Dante's Inferno. I mean, why else would a diner have fire as its logo? That's a weird mascot for food, which makes all of these apparitions glued to their cellular devices souls trapped in hell, or, if we're being kind, maybe just purgatory. I mean, this whole journey is reminiscent of Dante's Inferno with the whole having a guide take us through different layers of a place. That's a whole separate video topic that neither of us signed up for, though, so I'll get back on track. Alright, now that I've proven why I'm the smartest little boy, let's get back into our conversation with Leia. At first glance, she's the first driver who doesn't seem to have a glaring character flaw. Good for her. No mentioning of fortitude or memory 50 different times for us this time. We might actually have to put on our reading glasses to catch this one. Leia's very proud of her ability to read other people. She and the other ones along this highway see the staff at Dante's Diner as straight shooters who can look right through you and tell you exactly what you need to hear. That's a lot of confidence. Let's see if she can back it up. She doesn't mind calling out Vern for having a fake job, although, to be honest, he makes it clear that his wife farmed the grapes and he just dried them. A bit too semantic for my tastes. She also calls Hops the patron saint of useless stuff, and after seeing his cluttered car that somehow didn't have a manual or a map, she kinda has a point. She's the first to really hammer in the fact that everything happening is part of a dream, and that each obstacle is something we've placed in the way to avoid the painful truth. She even finds it in her heart to follow the revelation up with the context necessary not to write the remaining events off as pointless. Leia quotes a poem and makes it extremely clear. Just because it's all a dream, that doesn't inherently make for a lazy answer. There are consequences for this journey, and things have the meaning we assign to them. So what if this is a dream? They make excellent metaphors for introspection, which is exactly what this game is all about. So why shouldn't it be a dream? Instead of writing the whole thing off, she provides us with a chance to interact with this and every story that comes down to it was all a dream with a newfound perspective. If you're enjoying the ride, or at the very least getting something out of it, it's worthwhile. And while I'd love to leave it there and say she really is right about everything, she's not always philosophical epiphanies and hard truths. Her biggest lie comes when she tells us that we were the one to storm out of the diner. Why did she lie about that? I think she's trying to convey that we were the ones to give up first. Just because Kira was the one who actually left, it was our attack on her that counted as giving up on the conversation. We were taking unnecessary shots at her, and she just chose to leave the situation when it became clear that this was about something else. We didn't storm out, but we ended the conversation before it even began out of jealousy. So if each of these drivers are a mirror for ourselves, what's Leia's flaw? Let's talk about robot doubles. She hates the things, absolutely cannot stand them. And they did try to maul her on a plane, so fair enough. But our argument with Kira was about how she felt like a robotic version of herself. A robot double, if you will. Leia's hypothetical about going on a date with a double is a pretty clear parallel to the issue that started the fight. So Leia, and in turn our issue, is that she can't understand the need for turning off the brain. She just assumes it's laziness every time. But people go into autopilot for dozens of different reasons, and very few of them have to do with laziness. She says herself that Kira might have been missing something in the relationship, and that turns out to be exactly the truth. That's what the man with many eyes represents in a way. From our perspective, he was pulling Kira away from us, so in a dream, that takes shape as kidnapping. But that's getting a little ahead of myself. The men with all the wacky eyes are a topic that needs to wait until the conclusion. I know I already had my pointless tangent at the beginning of this section, but I just thought it was neat that Leia's a Gemini. It makes sense for her characterization as a chameleon, but more notably, it blew my mind on a first playthrough because, like I mentioned before, I'm a Gemini too. I don't know why, but I thought for a minute that the game had somehow pulled my birthday and given me a tailored horoscope in her car. Not proud to say it took longer than I'll admit to figure out that that was not the case. It's fair to say that Leia's ride was my favorite of the lot, and I don't know if it's because of the horoscope, the poetry, or the fact that the diner is a nice change of scenery. But I think it's only fair to admit that it made me actually disappointed in myself when I betrayed Leia, even though I was just doing it to see what options it might open up. It was her drive that convinced me I had to make a video about this game. Something about it just sticks in my head. All that aside, we're almost done with our friendly waitress, but she leaves us with one last thing worth noting. We're collecting photos, and while that might seem impartial, they're memories taken through our lens. There are other sides of this story, and we won't find our answers if we only stick to our side of this road. Pretty interesting point, Leia. Counterpoint, I just got stuffed in the trunk of someone's car. Now, I'm no expert in these things, but I'm pretty sure a dream about being in a tight space is a sign of feeling trapped in your life. After 2 seconds of research, that's what my boy Sigmund says at least. Paging Dr. Freud, and about something other than my mom for once. How nice. I definitely wasted my time looking that up, because Al-Shatir says as much given it is his dream we're appropriating. Dude has plenty of reasons to feel trapped back in reality. Before we get to his whole deal though, I want to point out that Vern does not hesitate to pull out his almanac to help us when we call him. Might not sound like such a big deal, but do you remember where that almanac was? In his glove box. When we unlocked it and finally forced him to see what was inside, we helped him start to face his trauma. I'm not sure how real Vern is, but I know that something like that is worth noting, even if it might be easy to overlook. Al-Shatir definitely feels real. He's the only driver completely unconcerned about who we are and what we're doing. Well, maybe a little bit, but only in the, how did you end up in the passenger seat of this car kind of way, not the usual, I'm the ghost of fights with your girlfriend's past kind. He does not hesitate to call us out for assuming that everything happening on this highway is about us, and that provides some perspective for our journey. He straight up scoffs at how banal our problems are compared to his. Al-Shatir is the only other person we meet who has trouble remembering his name on these roads, and I think it's safe to say that he genuinely isn't another guard, but he can still function like one. This time, he's not here as a mirror, but as a window to show us what Leia was already trying to hint at. There are people outside of ourselves that we have to consider when searching for the truth. The heart of his lesson is that we are not the only person in this story, and if we want to get to the bottom of it, we'll have to see our memories from another angle. His story for Nadia can also be a guide for interpreting our own. Like he says, sometimes the only way you can hear the truth is in the disguise of a story. That's basically what we're doing here, just coding the truth in an epic hero's journey to make it more palatable. Considering our first interaction consists of a screaming match with someone who clearly can't understand us, I think it's safe to say that our photographer needed this whole humble pie. Even Al-Shatir's name is a sign that we may be getting too caught up in ourselves. Despite all the things we've said about Copernicus, he was not the first to suspect that the old models of the universe weren't exactly accurate. Like he tells us, Ibn al-Shatir is considered as the predecessor to Copernicus, but we all know which of those names we're more likely to have heard about. Much like our namesake, though, there's a lot we can learn from Al-Shatir if we're willing to be honest and listen. He advises us to hold on to reality as much as possible, because otherwise, things will be too easy to get mixed up. He tells us to trust in Leia and the staff at Dante's Diner, because they rarely give you anything you don't deserve. He even gives us an action plan to find Kira using the fake tour and the magic spell we'll need to get past our final foe. And how fitting that it's simply the words "know thyself" in a language we can't understand. Just another ironic way that we're learning that a perspective outside of our own is necessary to gain all of the answers. Honestly though, I think the best thing about our trip with Al-Shatir is that it's not nearly as dense with references and subtle hints. It's just a genuine interaction between two real people from two very different worlds, both trying to find some comfort. We can just sit back and listen to someone else's problems for a minute and forget about our own. But this breath of fresh air can't last forever, and the time comes for us to part ways. Each man must finish his own journey alone. Let's not keep Jack waiting. Here we are again, the end of the road. But this time, let's cross our fingers that it sticks. Maybe if we don't take this whole thing too literally, there will be something slightly less confusing waiting at the end of this all. I sure hope so. Otherwise, I have wasted a large amount of your time. Let's start with our leap of faith. Kira is clearly feeling her adventurous side come out abroad because she listens to a story that sounds like a PSA on why you shouldn't ever hang glide, and decides her fear of heights wasn't that serious after all. That Craig guy seems like he really brought her out of her shell, and she seems to like the new her. That's why she spends our whole road trip looking to change things up. She clearly got something important out of the experience. Between the magnet, handwriting a letter for the first time in forever, and facing her fear of heights, Kira has started to find herself in Europe, just like she was hoping. Unfortunately, the new Kira is not a huge fan of the old us, and we were not picking up on the signals. Or maybe we were, but we weren't exactly willing to do anything about it. The arguments along the road have gotten angrier and more pointed with each memory, and it's easy to see that things were going to boil over one way or the other soon. What I didn't expect was that we would grab someone's phone out of their hand while they were driving. Then again, that info isn't coming from the most trustworthy of men, considering he keeps taking mysterious VR calls while behind the wheel. I shouldn't speculate too much, after all, I'm only hearing one side of the conversation, but it very much seems like he shouldn't use the phrase, "we got him," in front of the guy we got. Just a thought. Makes me a bit less likely to buy your words at face value. The postcard from Hops's car is here now, and it does look like it's from Kira. Feels like a smoking gun. At the very least, this guy definitely is her brother. Also worth noting that if Jack is the man with mirror eyes, which his wild headset would suggest, and Craig is the man with many eyes, then when Jack says it's because of Craig that he even picked us up, he's telling a twisted version of the truth. It's not because of altruism. Craig is looking to get that box back before we get it open. If we think of each driver as an aspect of our mind, then Jack is our guilt personified in the form of the pissed-off sibling. Jack is on a warpath, and while he occasionally tries to be understanding, he spends most of our time together absolutely tearing into us. We finally made it to the toughest guard, a man too angry to bother with lying to us. He's here to tell us exactly what kind of guy we are, and he doesn't care that we won't like the answer. And yet, he's lying more than anyone else, isn't he? Keep in mind, this whole thing is just a ploy to get us to drop our guard. Al-Shatir warned us that when he pulls the "your loved ones are hurt" card, we should be wary. Jack seems to me to be the voice in your head that feels like it sees right through you, given shape. It's so easy to hear every awful thing that voice says about you as the truth. And that's just because when you're fully to blame, you're in control. It's your bad behavior that got you here, and you can take comfort in the fact that at least you were in charge, so maybe you can still control where it goes next. But we're not the only person to blame here, and this is not the whole truth. Things with Kira have not completely fallen apart. She wouldn't have gone on the road trip if she wasn't looking for another chance with us. I won't lie, the car crash is gonna be a tough one to recover from, but we have to get past Jack's stalling to find the real culprit, the man with many eyes. And wouldn't you know, when we step on the brakes, finally call an end to the road trip and the lies, we get the box open and a 50 billion dinar bill. That's a lot of zeros, isn't it? Some astute counters out there might have even noticed that it was 10 zeros. And they circle our wrist for a moment there, don't they? And there we have it. In just one moment, I'm confident that everything can finally fall into place. Are you ready to solve this mystery? Find the truth? Put down the raisins. I can't dance around it anymore. We need to talk about the man with many eyes. Okay, I have sort of a confession to make. And I swear, this is the last tangent. I just need this one last time. Alright, here it is. No more stalling. This game convinced me to read poetry. And there went my last viewer. Well, now that I'm talking to absolutely no one, I can finally be honest. After beating this game for the first time, I decided to go online and buy a copy of Praise by Robert Haas, the same book that Leia quotes in the diner. It is a fantastic book of poetry, and if you are even halfway interested in reading poems, I highly recommend it. But that's not why I bring it up, because there's no one here for me to be recommending it to anyway. I bring it up because I think that we need to talk about just how much this game wants to reference literature. Almost every drive we go on is dripping with quotes, references, and straight up stolen themes from various books. It's why I felt like calling this section a literary analysis was so fitting. This whole journey feels like a love letter to literature. This meta-commentary on the hero's journey and tropes makes this a story very much about other stories. It's why any literal reading of this game is going to fall flat. You have to participate in the process of reading a book. You can't expect it to spell everything out for you. So it would make sense that a game about books and stories wouldn't be so straightforward either. So I guess that means it's finally time to talk about what's going on. Let's start with this. Yes, the whole thing is a dream. I'm sorry. I know that it feels like a lazy answer after this big promise that I had the answer. I'm just going to take the drivers at their words? It's not even really interpretation, that's just the text. But just because this whole thing is a dream doesn't mean it makes sense, right? I mean, there's tons of books about how to interpret dreams. Consider this an amateur addendum to those, then. Here's the story as I see it. Laid out from the beginning, we, Copernicus, are a photographer whose girlfriend, Kira, is about to take a trip from our home in rainy Seattle to Europe to find herself. At the end of that expedition, we have a road trip planned through the Badlands to see her family in Chicago. During her trip, she writes us a few times, but we don't seem to be very responsive, somewhat due to the fact that we're in California, meeting with a grape farmer named Vern to take photos for a magazine. She meets a tour guide named Craig, and there's clearly some chemistry there. The two exchange numbers and agree to continue texting. On her return, it's clear that she's not the same person who left. The road trip leads through her childhood neighborhood, and we stop by her old house where the current resident, Hops, invites us in. She gets a phone call before we can enter, and she takes it, much to our frustration. This doesn't appear to be the first time she let a phone call come between us. After the call ends, we sit outside the house, and she finally makes it clear what's different about her. She's looking for a change. She mentions moving back here and settling down, but we shut that down quick because we aren't looking to shift things up. For now, she lets it go, and the trip continues as planned. As we make our way through the Badlands, we stop to eat at a diner, but Kira is more interested in texting Craig than talking to us. We blow up on her from a mix of jealousy and your standard jackassery. Our waitress, Leia, attempts to defuse the situation by taking our order, but Kira is too frustrated and leaves. She makes plans to meet Craig at a nearby gas station, and considering the meetup is written on a business card, I get the impression they're meeting under the guise of hiring him as a guide through the Badlands, the same reason we call Balkan tours. We get back in the car, and somewhere along the way tensions continue to build until we finally reach over and snatch her phone away. This results in our car getting into a crash, and Kira is severely injured. Faced with the guilt of what we've done, we retreat into our mind and dreams. This is where the game starts. We wake up in Vern's car looking for a way to fix what we've done, but we aren't ready yet to face it. Each driver along the road, with the potential exception of Al-Shatir, is a reflection of our mind. We project onto real people we've met along the road in hopes that we can find out where we went wrong, and each drive is a conversation with what we imagine each of these people is like. If you've seen I'm Thinking of Ending Things, it's pretty much that. Spoilers for that movie, I guess. Throughout the adventure, we battle with the feeling that all of this is Craig's fault, so we portray him as the man with many eyes. And given how our mind shapes Jack, Kira's brother, I'd imagine he approved more of Craig than us in real life as well. So we see him as the man with mirror eyes. But let's be honest, Craig isn't responsible for this, and neither is Jack. There's only one man at the heart of this whole thing, and we have to open the box to find out who that is. When we get past our mind's final obstacle, we can see the truth that we were hiding from this whole time. And it's a memento from Kira showing she was thinking of us the whole time she was in Europe, and a tape reminding us of the promise we made to her. When you look in that box, it's hard to think that Kira was as ready to give up as it seemed. It feels a lot more likely that she came back looking for a reason to stay, and we let our hurt feelings get in the way of seeing that we had as much of a hand in pushing Kira away as Craig did. So why does everyone think that the contents of this box are a threat to the man with many eyes? Do you see it yet? The answer at the heart of everything? You've just crashed a car. You're looking for a man that you can only see in reflections and photographs. The man to blame for all of your misery. A man who can follow you through your dreams. A man who can only be defeated with the magical spell of knowing thyself. A man whose sidekick has mirrors for eyes. Craig is not the man with many eyes. That was just a comforting fabrication to give you a reason to keep going. An antagonist to give your trip a destination. Well, here you are. The box is open and the only thing inside is a reminder that you promised you would never give up the hope that it was never too late to fix things. Will your future self listen to this message written just for him? We are the man with many eyes, and our camera is the man with mirror eyes. Leia practically spells that out when she warns you that the camera is a weapon. We took all these pictures and told ourselves that they captured the truth of each moment, but that was never the case. They captured what we wanted to remember, the way we wanted to remember it. Because we couldn't face the fact that we were to blame as much as anyone else for all of this. And now we're faced with a choice. Are we willing to put aside the fear and the shame and admit that we've done wrong? Do we still believe that anything can be fixed? Hitchhiker is a mystery game, and that question, that's its mystery. Wow, that was a lot. I'm a little out of breath, to be completely honest. Most people have the chance to stop me before I get this far, so I'm not really used to talking for this long on end. I think it's only fair to go ahead and say thank you so much for sticking around this long. I really hope that you got something out of this whole ordeal. And hey, at the end of the day, if you disagree with my interpretation of this game, that's completely fair. I did my best to capture as many of these dialogue options as possible, but I absolutely missed at least a few things here and there. And maybe those were the exact pieces I needed to get a completely different answer. Or maybe you just fundamentally disagree with the answers I came up with. That's cool too. I have tried to find a balance between using evidence and vibes, but regardless, I've given you a peek into my soul. I don't expect your soul to get the same things mine did out of this piece of art. All I ask is that you respect this game as much more than some Apple Arcade game with a console port. There's something to see here. I'm just hoping I could show you one side of that. Please, if you think I've missed something, I would love to see a video of your own about the game, or at the very least, post your thoughts in the comments, and I'd be happy to hear your perspective on all of this. That's what I hope we can all get out of this video. Don't live your life on an island. Open yourself up to perspectives of others, and make a genuine effort to see what the people around you are dealing with. Thanks again for watching. I hope to see you all real soon with another video, but until then, I have been Chester Starling, the star of the Starlings. Drive safe out there.
Come on, join in. In hell they have a hell a lot of bread. In hell they have a hell a lot of bread. In hell they have a hell a lot of bread. In hell they have a hell a lot of bread.